The constant companions through Escher North, at eschernorthwordpress.com, The Manuscript of Survival, Part 414, May 1, 2014. As many of you have already noticed, the wheels keep turning faster and faster now, and the engine of change has been put into a brand new gear. This engine of change is indeed a formidable piece of machinery, and that is because all of the components of this machine are alive. And you count as perhaps the most vital parts of this machinery, and when we say vital, we do mean that in every connotation of the word, for this living machine, this powerful creation that in turn creates the new, is in fact nothing more than a conglomeration of souls, some of them inhabiting a physical body, such as yours, while others exist on the etheric plane, and together, you make up a huge and complex army of co-workers, all connected together in such a way, that no matter how hard any single one of the components tries to hold back because of fear, this cannot stop the continuation of this whole operation, for as we have told you before, fear in itself is the single most inhibiting factor there is, and previously in the history of mankind, a small portion of fear administered at just the right time was enough to literally stop any one of you in your tracks. And so, controlling the destiny of mankind was simply a matter of chemistry. For although you associate fear with an emotion, it is in the physical sense merely a result of a whole cocktail of diverse chemicals being released into your bloodstream, and when these chemicals enter your system, they trigger all of those emotional and physical symptoms you all know so well. And we are talking about some incredibly small amounts of chemicals in the forms of hormones that can trigger such a powerful response, so no wonder this mechanism was considered to be such a foolproof weapon of deterrent for those beings set on controlling the minds and the hearts of mankind. Remember, you have been well trained to follow your mind, and when the mind sits in the driver's seat, the mind will always be subjected to these chemical emissions that will trigger these fight or flight mechanisms that are an intrinsic part of the crippling of mankind's inherent power. But now, as you have managed to finally bypass the system of mind over matter, you have also managed to curtail the actions of all of these chemical reactions within your body. For when the heart steps back into its rightful place at the helm, the heart will always know how to handle these signals the body will be sending out at any given time. For the heart will know how to distinguish between signals that are important to heed, and to ignore all of those false alarm bells that may go off at frequent intervals. For the heart will know when someone is trying to play games with you, and so, the heart will raise above the din of voices trying to scare you back into submission with all of these numerous outbursts of cry wolf. For the heart is the seat of your soul whenever you inhabit a physical body such as yours, and so, the heart will know when to take action, and when to sit back and simply let these waves of chaos wash over you. And as long as you manage to stay in your heart, your body will also learn to follow the wisdom from within and to stop falling for the same old tricks of creating havoc by creating fear. For this chemical cocktail of mental warfare that is released whenever the old instinct of fear is triggered is simply a programmed response. It is indeed one of those old bugs that was implanted into your system by those that needed an easy way to control you all. And what they did, was to insert a sequence of chemical reactions that could be triggered remotely by subjecting you to a vibration in the form of a specific range of frequential waves. So it is in many ways like having a radio receiver within you, one that has been set to a station where it can only receive those low-frequency signals that will automatically set off the same crippling physical and emotional reactions every time. For as you all know so well, the onset of fear will cancel out any seemingly well-informed and clear-minded reaction to these low-vibrational wave patterns, and so, whenever fear sets in, it usually manages to override any and all sensible and well-calculated response. For fear is like a panicked horse, taking off at full speed, not heeding which direction it runs, as long as it can simply flee blindly away from any perceived threat. For this is the fight or flight mechanism in its beautiful simplicity, it blots out anything except that overwhelming feeling of danger, and so, it disables all of your other faculties. But not so any longer, at least, not so for all those like you who have managed to disentangle yourself from that old master, the mind, and who have let the heart step forth and relieve the mind of its former duties. For as long as the heart is once again in command of the command center, these low-frequency modulations still being sent out will fail to reach that radio within you. for you have effectively tuned away from these old stations of fear and you have been retuned in such a way, your internal radios have been set to receive only the new frequencies, those that simply carry one message, the message of love. And so, what you have chosen to receive, will help to set all of those old mechanisms back to zero. Of course, you all still carry the ability to produce these same chemicals that are used whenever your body needs to react in a swift and decisive manner, but now, the difference is that you will know what and how to respond, and you will also know when it is a false alarm, something to simply be ignored. For remember, these old stations sending out these distress signals are still very busy doing just that, and for those still choosing to tune into these transmissions, there will be no end of triggers coming their way, and they can choose to literally drown themselves in these floods of inhibiting chemicals being released into their bloodstream. For fear is indeed still a powerful presence in many people's lives, that is, if they choose to let it. While for so many others, love has taken that all-important space within them, and love is the one guiding light that will keep them going, no matter what the rest of their fellow men will think or do. For although fear can have such a devastating effect on mankind, it is no match for the power of love, and even if this may sound like the title of one of your popular tunes, it is also a verifiable fact. Remember, love is also a frequency, and it is a frequency of such an amplitude, it can override everything else. And so, when love enters, nothing else can come in and block it out. For nothing in all of creation can carry a tune that is able to affect love negatively in any way. For love is the vibration that is the pinnacle of all, and anything not compatible with the frequency of love will simply just bounce off and be deflected by that shield of harmonics that the frequency of love creates within anything carrying it. For remember, everything is energy, and love is in a category of its own when it comes to frequential signature. Because God is love, and love is the frequential signature of God. And you are all also a part of this creation, and you are all also a part of God, and so, you carry these same receptors for tuning into this frequential pattern within you from the very beginning. But as you have been put through a process of reprogramming, these receptors of love were inhibited in such a way, you became easy prey for those controllers who wanted you to answer to their calling, and so, you became retuned to favor the frequency of fear, as we discussed previously. But now, those old programmings have been set to null and void, and so your station of love is once again ready and able to receive the full spectrum of programs coming from Source, and as such, you will all find yourself dancing freely to the new tunes streaming into your very being from this source of love. We know we speak in simple terms yet again on a subject that for many still hold the significance of life and death in a very real way, but we choose our words in this manner in order to remind you all of the joy that lies embedded within these frequencies of love. For you have spent most of your lives under the thumb of fear, and you have walked upon this earth with a frown upon your face, heavily laden with sadness and dejection, and indeed any kind of low-density emotional output you could care to name. For emotions are also energetic, and what you have been subjected to for so long, has left you dragging your feet from the heavy onslaught of emotional input and output that has been pulling you in a downward spiral, seemingly forever. But now, the hold from these old densities has been easing off, and now you are all more than able to simply shrug off the rest of them and let your spirit lift you up like a bright, shimmering balloon, all the way up to the sky. For with these brand new frequential signals of love comes a buoyancy that will lift you, body and soul, ever higher, and with it also comes the emotional equivalent of lightness, in the form of bliss, joy and a deep sense of relief. And that is why we are here to remind you that you need not carry that old weight of emotional crippling baggage with you any longer, for it is no longer yours to carry. We know we have talked about this subject again and again, but once again it bears repeating. For you have all entered a new stage now, one that is not intended for playing out those old dramas that you have become so used to playing out. It is almost impossible for some of you not to keep it up. But this stage has been set for a very different purpose, namely for you to create upon. For this time, you will be the creator, you will be the director, and you will be the crew putting it all together. For now, it is up to you to set the rules, or if there are to be any at all. And this time, it is up to each and every one of you to let your heart's desire come out to play in every sense of the word. For you are now free to create, and you are no longer forced to listen to that same old tune of fear, and you are indeed free to let that love streaming into your being come out again through your heart, your eyes, your voice and your entire body. For when you choose to embrace love, it is not something that becomes contained within you, it is something that simply flows through you and out into your entire world again. So use it, and relish in using it, and know that you can never run out of it. In fact, the more you let this love flow, and yes, we use the word this with intent, for this love is not yours, it is for all. The more you let this love flow through you, the faster this flow will increase. And the faster you learn to let go of the need to control this love, the faster the rest of this world of yours will find a way to access this love from within themselves too. For the more love you manage to transmit out into the ethers from your own open heart, the easier it becomes for those still listening into the broadcast of fear to hear the calling from this beautiful song above the din of disinformation. And that is why we keep reminding you to simply allow the love to flow into your heart, for as soon as it enters that wonderful transmitter of yours, it can be broadcast back out again in all directions, touching the hearts of millions of others, nudging the spark that lies dormant within them, setting it alight in such a way that the connection to the old mechanism of fear becomes severed once and for all in them all.